but I think John is behind the matchup here, certainly game one.
My friends, the elimination rounds are underway. Of course, after this game, we'll bring it back to the booth. I'll have the first question this evening for 3 months of premium. Patrick will ask the 6-month question in the semifinals. And I'll wrap it up. I'll ask the one in the finals as we're underway. We have a Glimmer Post. Kassari is going to go up to 21 and play a Pithing Needle. We'll see what he's going to name with that. As Boland, one of the tricks with this deck is that you choose to draw first.
Yes.
So, Kassari actually chose to draw first. I like it.
Yeah, so
one up you.
Michael on the first turn just does nothing because
course.
the way that he gets the ball rolling here is discarding the hand size.
Yep. So you see Cloud Post is going to come into play. That's going to come into play tapped. You do a Locust check. There are 2 in play right now. It's time to dredge 5 cards, 2 copies of Nether Shadow, a Phantasmagorian, a Cabal Therapy, and a Street Wraith. We'll have our card images ready. I promise you, a Stinkweed Imp is going to go back to the grip here.
So I often talk about how Goblins is this very cool convergence of 15 years or 20 years of Magic history. Manaless Dredge is kind of the same thing, but some horror show version of this. Is capitalizing on a pretty long history of weird graveyard synergies to play this sort of game.
There you see Stinkweed Imp is going to be discarded for the turn by Michael, so we're going to go back to Kassari. Kassari, it's just a race. We're just goldfishing here. He's going to activate top.
And Kassari can actually goldfish pretty quickly. Does not, if you haven't watched 12 Posts in action, doesn't take very long for this deck to assemble either Primeval Titan, which allows it to quickly cast, actually hard cast Eldrazi creatures like Emrakul.
The main deck, Bajuka Bog. Get that weak stuff out of here.
Yeah, that is a singleton.
And that's just going to be a discarding thereof. Now, that's a different art. I'm stumped. I think that might be a Stinkweed Imp. I'm not sure. It might be altered.
I think that was a reprinted Stinkweed Imp. The Modern Masters one, I believe.
Okay. So, I mean, that's what got removed from Bajuka Bomb. I want to make sure I know that card in the graveyard. We'll get confirmation for you guys, so we're not guessing what that card is.
Yeah.
Fairly sure it's a Stinkweed Imp, but I don't want to be wrong about that for those viewing at home, especially this deck for the first time.
So eventually, once Manaless Dredge gets its engine online, the eventual kill is sort of the classic Dredge stuff. It can use Bridge from Below and Narcomoebas and such to set up a large Dredge return. Flavor of the Hate Bomb being the creature, which gets generates a lot of CIP, deal damage to the player triggers, and that's essentially the kill here.
It's a Golgari Thug. It's a different art on it. I've never seen that one before.
I think that's the Modern Masters Thug.
There's no way that card wasn't Modern Masters. It had to be some promo. It's kind of nice. Dredges for 4.
I'm not enthusiastic enough about the graveyard promos to have a great read on the situation.
Narcomoeba's going to come in off the dredge. There's also Nick Grid, a Shambling Shell, and a Dread Return. That artwork was sweet. I like it. Yeah, duh. Duh. Go ahead. Tell them where it's from, Patrick.
Dual decks, Is It versus Golgari.
Yep.
Should have known that one.
Duh. What do you do in your spare time?
An iconic product.
Gataxian Probe. Your actual favorite card is going to show Hand of Ulamog. A couple copies of Primeval Titan, and this match is awesome. Emrakul and a Dark Depths.
Yeah, so it looks like he's replacing the draw here with a Dredge of Shambling Shell.
That's correct. 3 cards. Another Shambling Shell, Gataxian Probe, and then a Golgari Grave Troll. That's the most important one.
Yeah. Michael's deck does a really good job of playing around Emrakul by having no permanence.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah, that's really good strategy.
And he's obviously doing that well. You see he's got these cards in play, cards off to the side. Basically what you do when you play Dredge is your graveyard is basically your battlefield. So those cards that are actually above Narcomoeba aren't in play. That's his graveyard. But with the way the Dredge plays, this is basically his hand in a way. Dredge players oftentimes do this. It's a little confusing if you've never seen it before. And so in case you're wondering again, the Pithing Needle is on Phantasmagorian.
That complicates matters for Michael quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's his best way to get a bunch of dredgers in the graveyard.
Correct.
He can still win kind of a conventional dredge game, but his deck isn't nearly as well suited to do that as a dredge deck with actual, cephalid coliseums and that sort of thing.
A beautiful looking creature there in Phantasmagorian. 6/6. The only part of this card that actually matters is the bottom part, which is discard 3 cards, return it to your hand. And what you do is that's the card that you actually discard, and then before you draw, you discard a couple of dredgers that way, and then that gets the party started. This is an expedition map. Going to play and use it. Will Kassari.
He's moving very quickly, so he's definitely got something specific in mind.
Yeah, it's going to be Vesuva to copy Pachuca Bog. We are doing it.
And it wouldn't surprise me if this was by far the most Game 1 disruption that Michael has played against in the tournament.
Yeah. Now, there got to be 4 Vesuvas in this deck, right?
There are 4 copies of Vesuva.
Yeah, 4 Vesuvas and 1 Pachuca Bog, so he can just keep removing the graveyard as long as he finds lands that tutor, which, cards that tutor, like Expedition Map, Crop Rotation, stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely underestimated the influence that Pachuca Bog and cloning it could have in this matchup.
Keeps that graveyard in check, but don't forget about Narcomoeba out there.
Still keeping it real.
Give the business. The old jellyfish. Michael going to figure out what he needs to discard here, assuming that he can discard. He's going to start by attacking for 1. Kassari's going to go down to his original 20. He went up to 21 from a Glimmer Post. And Boland just has to kind of keep trucking along like nothing's changed. He's going to discard Golgari Thug because there's nothing he can do about, Kassari just copying Pachuca Bog with Vesuva over and over again. As he draws another copy. He draws a copy of Vesuva for the turn.
His deck does not really allow him any other path.
Mm-hmm.
He just, again, he doesn't have lands or spells, so this is the only thing he can do.
And you see Kassari is going to count the mana here, and Ulamog is in the house. Because there are 4 locusts in play, so the 2 Cloud Posts will tap for 8. Glimmer Post is 9. Pachuca Bog, that is copied, is 10 and 11. You're going to see a Dredge here. Kassari showing the Emrakul in his hand that he knows he can cast. That's it. That's going to do it. Just your standard run-of-the-mill legacy match there between Mono Green Post and Manless Dredge. John Kassari does win game number 1 with Mono Green Post. He rolls up his sleeves. Pachuca Bog got the job done.
Yeah, my apologies for saying that John was short on Disruption Game 1 because Pithing Needle and Pachuca Bog were both haymakers in those games.
Playing a role. Definitely playing a role. So we're going to bring it back to the booth here for you guys. It is trivia time. Patrick, you are my rules explainer. I'll fire away the first question, okay?
All right, Cedric's going to ask you a trivia question. You will tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct answers, one will be selected at random, and that person will receive 3 free months of Star City Games Premium and content. It is about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about being the first one to submit, just that you submit a correct answer.
I got a smile on my face about the card I'm going to ask about.
Okay.
So, this Manless Dredge deck by Michael Boland, there's a bunch of 4-of creatures. A bunch of them have Dredge. Now, there are 2 1-of creatures in the deck. One of them is Flayer of the Hatebound, which I could ask you about because that's hard enough. But, yeah, you see it now. He sees it.
That's a good one.
There's another 1-of creature in this deck. It dredges for, I believe the dredge is 3.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll give you the casting cost as well, which is 3 colorless and 1 green mana. If you can name this 1-of Dredger in Michael Boland's deck, hashtag the enter, hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live. 3 months goes to the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. Baby, that's nice.
That's a nice touch.
I did not know that was in there. That's a nice touch. As we're going to head over to the sideboards here, I'm going to actually take a look at Michael Boland's. Because you know what? I like this deck.
Sweet.
I like 4 Ashen Riders, a Sarah Avatar, 4 Mindbreak Trap, a Noxious Revival, a Sickening Shoal, and 4 copies of Surgical Extraction. I don't expect him to bring in very many cards.
Yes.
I don't really think that's how he's going to try to win, but those are the options that you see. Now, all kidding aside, if Kassari was playing a card like Show and Tell, and we see that a lot in the post decks, a lot of them play Show and Tell to cheat Emrakul and Primeval Titan into play, then I would board Ashen Riders. But because he's this mono green version, I don't think that Boland has any good options to bring in.
Yeah, the toughest thing here is that of all the cards you can see here, they're concessions to various forms of graveyard disruption or trying to beat other combo decks. But he doesn't really have an answer to Pachuca Bog, and that's the card that John is going to be maximizing with his 1 copy, with crop rotation, and with his Vesuvas to copy it. On the other side, John Kassari, 2 Elven Grass, 4 Ley, Line of Sanctity, 2 Rest in Peace, a Sacred Ground, a Gedok, 2 Creeping Corrosions, a Glacial Chasm, a Savannah, and a Tabernacle. I'd imagine the Savannah comes in alongside the 2 copies of Rest in Peace, of course. I think Gedok you can see coming in as well, and Elephant Grass.
Yeah, and the cards that Kassari has to bring in are actually all really, really good, so seems like it's going to be a tough road ahead here for Boland, who is likely going to choose to draw first and try to do what Manless Dredge does, but he was unsuccessful that game. Hopefully we can see it in action this one.
And, I'm sure that John did not have these cards in his deck with Manaless Dredge in mind, but they were quite effective there. Bajuka Bog, of course, good against potentially Tarmogoyfs or more dedicated graveyard strategies. And Pithing Needle, basically a concession to how good Wasteland is against his strategy, but what proved quite excellent against Michael in that first game.
I do have one update for you guys. Apparently in the top 8, the match between Jonathan Job and Yuri Cecil. Job mulled a 4, Cecil playing Belcher, Job playing Blue-Green Food Chain. He had not one but 2 Force of Wills to stop the combo. Then he ended up casting Emrakul to get the job done.
Nice.
Pretty good.
Was it in a protracted game, or did he go off? Did he just get to 15 mana?
I would like to assume that he went off. That is my best guess. So it looks like I see both players taking a look at their opening hands. Again, Boland is going to choose to draw first because that's what Manaless Dredge does. Can you imagine the first time when this deck actually hit the scene and you play against it, you have no idea what's going on? Your opponent's like, I'll draw, and then they just do their thing. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Here's a Green Sun Zenith.
Michael contemplating a response, but again, no lands or spells in his deck, so
Yeah.
no response possible.
Yeah, that resolves.
What are you looking at me for? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in.
The one thing about this Manaless Dredge deck too is that it is just cold to hate. It just can't do anything. So if Kassari has a rest in peace, it's just all right. That's it. You win.
Yep.
That's just kind of how it works. But if people don't have hate cards, then they just lose to this deck.
And you can see the crop rotation John has in his hand here, so he's going to be able to go crazy with potentially going and getting his Bajuka Bog and then copying.
Yeah.
You see a Vesuva in his hand already, so he's got access to a lot of graveyard disruption in this game. And it's purely incidental. I mean, there's all cards he would play anyway and
Yep.
one Bajuka Bog.
Yeah, and just cards that happen to be completely insane against Boland. Oh no, the Dried Arbor looks like it wants to come in. Kassari is going to play a Glimmer Post. It's going to go up to 21. And play a top. And looks like an Expedition map, I believe, and pass the turn back. This card's got some spice on him.
And keep in mind that Kassari can break up whatever Boland's doing at a moment's notice by using the green mana from Triad Arbor and crop rotating for Bajuka Bog. So even though this looks a little risky on Kassari's part, he actually has an instant speed way of shutting it all down if it gets to that point.
Yep. And he can actually control his draw step too with the top to make sure he doesn't actually draw the Bajuka Bog in accident. And the other thing too is that because he has crop rotation in his hand and just played Expedition map, what he's basically doing is saying, Boland, you got to go off right now because I can just search for Bajuka Bog and ruin your graveyard. But in reality, we know that's not actually true. So what Michael is doing right now is he's going to discard 6 cards. Anybody wondering how is he doing that? Well, Phantasmagorium says discard 3 cards to return it to your hand. But what you can do is that you can discard 3 cards, return Phantasmagorium to your hand, and then with that on the stack, because it's still in the graveyard, discard 3 cards again so you can respond to itself. So he's able to discard 6 cards, return Phantasmagorium to his hand. First one resolves, second one will resolve, because discarding 3 cards is part of the cost, and Phantasmagorium will actually end up in his hand at the end of this.
Yeah. And I think Kassari may be contemplating a response now.
He says, that's fine. Before you draw, I'm going to crop rotate.
Yeah, and Michael knows, he moved basically all in here out of need, and Kassari had the correct response here.
Yeah, he has no choice.
Yeah, his hand allows him to play what he has.
Yeah. He just had to shove in. And Kassari's going to go rotating. Michael knows his graveyard's gone from the Bajuka Bog.
Well, it'll take 6 turns for Michael to be able to build up a hand capable of discarding again. So we'll see if John, with his Divining Top, is able to cobble something together of sufficient power to win the game in between now and then.
We'll see. At the very least, he's probably going to go down to 14 from that Dried Arbor. See a top on the upkeep here. Seeing a Needle, a Rest in Peace. My goodness.
Yeah, the Rest in Peace right now is just excessive. I don't know if it's castable, but again, John has a lot of time to work with.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. See, Kassari looking at a couple of cards. Your Expedition map can find the white source. I believe the only white source in John's deck. He's got like a Savannah in the board, maybe in his main. I think that's about it.
Yeah, he has 1 sideboarded Savannah.
Yep. That's just a small splash for white.
Yeah, what's really cool about John's deck also is that he also has Thespian Sage, Dark Depth as a backup plan.
Yeah.
So
he can crop rotate to that stuff. He can expedition map for it. He has Into the North as well. That's the Far Seek, Rampant Growth. That's cards that find snow-covered lands. A lot of the times you used Into the North to find Dark Depths, which is a snow-covered land. Sometimes Scrying Sheets. So, pretty sweet.
So here comes the expedition map.
Looking for one specific land. Gonna get a Windswept Heath.
The Windswept Heath, of course, allows him to get Savannah, which then allows him to cast Rest in Peace.
Yep. Also allows him to get a shuffle with the Sensei's Divine Top if he doesn't like what he sees, so he's just gonna do this now. Quick update for you guys. Jacob Corey against Kelvin Young. Corey, of course, Blue Red Delver. Kelvin Young, Sneak and Show. A match that we had earlier today. Jacob Corey up a game. That's our backup match. I think we'll have time to get there. Just a stab in the dark.
Yeah. It's all if Michael wants to continue to play the game once Rest in Peace hits the table.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I mean, it's his time, so it's his call.
Yeah,
but
he can do whatever he wants.
Okay.
The answer is no. No, he does not. John Kassari is going to win this match. He's moving on to the semifinals. Mono Green Post, moving on, defeats Manless Dredge in two pretty quick and easy games. Kassari will be playing the winner of Isaac Sears and Famous Band. Famous playing Bug Control, Isaac Sears playing Blue Red Delver. But for John Kassari, he's been slicing and dicing up this tournament with 12 Post.
Yeah, and 12 Post is a pretty cool deck for this tournament because even though it does struggle in the unfair matchups, it doesn't have a lot of disruption. It's basically just trying to cast Primeval Titan or an Eldrazi as fast as possible. This strategy is very challenging on honest beat